Greetings, subscribers, haters, trolls, and tropers. I'm Mario Ponner, and welcome back after a long hiatus and break and that sort of thing. I'm back with a very interesting little game by the good old folks over at DigiPen Institute of Technology. This is actually something of an interesting game, considering it was made as a student project by them, and it was quite a lot of fun. I've had these videos lying around my hard drive for a while, so I decided to finally upload this. This is a game known as Arc Angle. See the fun? It's actually a shoot 'em up, made by the famous dude Iron Commando. Well, he's not actually famous, but he's got some pretty good stuff. This is one of the more interesting games he's made. I'm setting the number of lives to 20 because that's the recommended setting, or recommended setting by me anyway, because that makes the game a lot easier if you have 20 lives per level. Basically, this is a pretty interesting shoot 'em up with a couple cool gimmicks, a lot of interesting stage designs, some pretty cool graphics, and some pretty nice music. One of the only real problems I have is the loading. It takes a bit long to load each level, especially considering that they're not too short or detailed. Also, the game seems to freeze up when loading. But other than that, everything is pretty nice. It's a pretty solid, short little game. It takes about an hour to an hour and a half to complete, based on how many times you died. And like I said before, it's got a rather interesting gimmick, which we'll be getting into as soon as the tutorial starts here. See that dude at the bottom, Zero Fin? He's our boss. And basically, we've got to destroy these Defiance terrorists. We're that little arc thing there with an angle in front of us. The HUD's in the upper right corner. There's lives, 20 of them, and then there's the energy bar. Then there's the score and our credits for this mission. And then there's our movement mode. You use WASD to move around. You can't change these controls, but they work just fine, so there's no need to. So basically, you maneuver all the firepower the Defiance terrorists shoot at you, so you can change to precision mode, which lets you dodge bullets. I have trouble using precision mode effectively, so I usually just stay in speed mode and dodge like a boss. Anyway, you can check your current movement mode by looking at your HUD. It's pretty darn simple, I'd say. Now basically, the enemies think you're underestimating you because they figure you have not very much cannon power, but you've got something called the Angle of Light. See that right there? The arc angle. Basically, it transforms enemy firepower into holy bullets, homing in on the source and destroying them. So essentially, that's the angle part, is your cool gimmick. You just need to shine your light on enemy shots and counter them. You can sweep it all around yourself and stuff. Of course, there's a bit more complicated than that. There's different powers of enemy shots and that sort of thing, and there's different power of angle as well, which can counter stronger bullets. But for right now, these grunts are going to be quite weak, and we can dispatch them quite easily. So they shoot out several bullets at us, and we can easily counter them with the angle without even needing to attack, and they are already destroyed. Pretty darn cool, huh? Now these troops are stronger, we've got powered missiles. So fortunately, our boss decides to give us an upgrade. Why didn't he just give us earlier, I don't know. You can push the left and right mouse buttons to change your angle size. You can make it more powerful, but that makes it smaller. It's pretty simple though. But the more powerful angle can transform higher powered shots, and also it does so quicker. So that means you can counter bullets easier before we have a chance to get to you. Because there's a lot of bullets in this game. These enemies shoot literally crap tons of bullets, and sometimes there's pretty much no way to damage them all, or dodge them all, so fortunately you can counter most of them. In most cases. Stronger shots take a longer time to transform, though. However, so you can have all those different kinds of angles, and enemy's color shows the type of shots it fires, most of the time. There's a couple exceptions which are a pain. But every now and again, you can't counter all the bullets, and you just have to dodge. Most of the time. But as you go through the game, you get higher max level, which makes it easier to, do stuff. Or counter bullets. You see that tiny little dot in the middle of you? That's your hitbox. You have a very small hitbox, like any respectable bullet hell games. You're probably going to need it, considering how many bullets the game throws at you in the late levels. But that's pretty easy because the bullets are slow, and they didn't really aim that well. So now we gotta think outside the box a little bit. There's enemies coming at us from the background, see? There's crosshairs that appear in the foreground. We need to move out of the way of the crosshairs and shine our angle over them. It's not too hard to figure out, but if you're being fired at the same time by regular enemies, it becomes a bit harder. But here these bullets are slow, easily countered, and it's pretty simple to get what I'm talking about here. And the holy bullets instantly spray back into the background and destroy the enemies that shoot in the first place. And it seems the commander's a bit mad that we destroyed all his troops. I guess he's getting involved then. His laser's too strong, we can't transform it, but if you stay close enough to enemy shots, like grazing, for seasoned Toho players out there, you fill up your energy meter. And then if you fill up your whole energy meter, you can release the Judgment Day Super Bomb, which will destroy all shots in the screen and pretty much kill everything. And it even takes down bosses in a couple of hits. At least the early bosses anyway. And so here's the commander, and that's a very big laser. So you just stay in the corner like this, just a little bit far, so you don't get hit. Hitbox is right in the very center, remember? You're fully charged up, and then you can counter the whole thing instantly. The angle sweeps all the way around you. And so you instantly destroy the commander. And this is only the beginning, though. This is just a tutorial level. It's actually optional, but it's probably a good idea to go through to get used to the gimmicks and the game mechanics. There's a shop with some upgrades, but in my opinion, the only really useful ones are Revenge and Energy Charge. The other ones are pretty useful too, but those two, even though they're most expensive, aside from Wide Beam, are pretty much the most useful to you, because Energy Charge lets you use your bombs easier, and Revenge destroys all bullets when you die, making it easier to recover. So that's nice. Well, it counters all bullets when you die anyway. Wide Beam costs so much money you'd have to grind for several days, replaying the same mission over and over to get enough money. But let's move on to the first stage, Apathy, because the tutorial is pretty simple, pretty easy. Apathy is where things actually get started, where you actually have to fight our first proper enemies, first proper process, and apply all we've learned. So yeah, I don't know why the tutorial doesn't have any music. That's something else that's weird. I don't think this game is going to be updated, but if it ever gets an updated re-release or something, I'd like to look into that. Some tutorial music would be nice, I guess. So now the Defiants have set up a major roadblock, and we need to destroy the system's core. There's a high security era, apparently, as our boss helpfully tells us. He's a nice guy. So we gotta charge in and destroy the enemy security. You notice my life counter's at 10? That's because I recorded this in 2 separate sessions and forgot to change it. These are the same weak mooks we saw from the practice session. For defenders, we can take them down quite easily, just by for missiles and firepower, because our angle is strong enough to be able to easily destroy them. See those mooks that come in large waves? They're no big deal as long as you know where they're coming from. Unfortunate angle covers a large amount of the screen. Then they come in from all sides, and that forces you to swing your angle around you. But fortunately, that shouldn't be too difficult. You need to go in the middle of these two things here. Now there's these mines. You can either make sure your angle doesn't shine toward them, or make your angle gray so it won't activate. I prefer making it gray, because that way you don't have to worry about setting them off, and you can fight these fronts at the same time. It's pretty easy. Once you know, you just need to turn your angle down. Now we have a turret system which fires shots at us, but this is actually pretty simple. It reminds me a bit of that one stage from Gradius 3, the Moy stage. These moving turrets similar to this, only this is quite a lot easier as there's much more space to maneuver through. You just gotta be careful and move and fire angle at the same time. And remember, the enemies have little rings around them which show up when they're about to fire. The really annoying enemies don't have those, which is what makes them so annoying. Now you gotta concentrate on them coming from 2 directions at once. Ultimately, a lot of the challenge of this game comes from, not knowing what to expect and not knowing how to dodge a certain situation. But it's still a definitely pretty challenging game, especially if you play with only 5 lives per mission or so. And also, it's also about memorizing patterns and that sort of thing, but there's some enemies and some bosses that are just really hard. Now these are very large turrets, and goofed up pretty bad there. The thing is, they fire those large, huge powered cannon shots. They also fire those arcs of bullets. Those arcs of bullets are especially a pain if you don't manage to counter them early enough, because they will fill up the whole screen and force you to use precision mode to get through. And if you're under attack by grunts at the same time, you'll be in sort of big trouble, because that's a pain. There's all these turrets back there, but fortunately most of them don't attack you. Only the ones with 4 nodules on the sides do, because, they're more detailed, and that's the way video games work. However, they can't aim over instantly, so you can use that to trick them and get to one side before they can fire at you. It's pretty clever. Now it's time for our first sub-boss against these 3 officers, that look like subway trains, and they're back in the background, see? But the thing is, they fire shots in the foreground, so you just need to remember your training from practice and counter the shots pretty easily. And then they fire shots in the foreground, so you need to stay to the sides and move up and down, so you gotta dodge on 2 levels at once. They're very easy, though. You can take them out with 1 Judgment Day if you have one filled up already, but I prefer doing this the regular way. Besides, I'm not fully charged up with energy yet. They have a bit of health, but it's not really too much of a big deal considering their attacks are quite easy to dodge. 3 of them, but it's not really a big deal at all. And they also give you a lot of bullets to counter with those massive spray attacks. So yeah, it's a pretty good first boss fight, I'd say. First sub-boss anyway. Look at that. Judgment Day meters charged up, which means I can unleash a bomb. Bombing is quite useful. That's why the energy upgrade is so useful, because a bomb makes you completely invincible, because running into enemies most of the time won't kill you. However, you're close enough to them, they'll probably just pop you in the face anyway with a bullet anyway. But strictly speaking, running into one doesn't kill you. So the bomb will pretty much makes you invincible while it's going off because it destroys all bullets. These mines you gotta be careful and not stay next to you really fast. You need to move past them quite quickly and not stay next to them for too long. Other than that, they're not too big of a deal unless they come at the same time as other enemies, which they do later. Most stage has its own unique enemies, and this game's music is pretty good for the most part. This track's okay. But there are a couple I really like. I'll point them out when we get to them. They're mostly later in the game. Now here we've got regular enemies and background enemies at the same time, basically introducing us to dodging two different ways at the same time. It's not too terribly hard because both groups of shots are slow, but it's not too bad. Now there's these vertical sections with turrets which move much faster. You just need to get through there as quickly as possible and keep moving so they can't get too good of a beat on you. Of course, a lot of this comes down to actually practice, but well, knowing what to do in this situation is quite helpful too. Now we've got these big powered turrets again, and this time it's not quite so easy considering we gotta fight two of them at the same time. You can't just outrun all their bullets this time because they'll be shooting twice as many of them. You see I was too close to that one right there. It didn't kill me from touch, I was just too close to it and it shot me in the face at point blank range. And now two show up at the same time, and it's a bit hard to dodge in precision mode because it slows you down considerably, so I don't use it very much. See, I bombed there because I didn't feel like using precision mode to get out, and took all the bullets quite easily. It's time for our first boss, this huge monument pillar thing. It's the security system's core. So, I guess it's time for us to destroy the core. Just like Gradius. The thing here is it sends all the enemies at you from the stage previously. However, you can't destroy any of them because all the shots are going into the background. This boss fight is pretty much harder than pretty much anything you've encountered before, but if you remembered all the strategies for defeating the enemies earlier in the stage, it shouldn't be too much of a challenge, considering that, you know, you managed to get past them all before. The bosses have a lot of health compared to regular enemies. Even with all these shots you shoot at it, it still takes several minutes to defeat. Here you're going to want to widen your angle before those mines show up, and before Zero Fin, your boss, helpfully tells you to. That prompt comes about half a second too late, and you'll probably get popped in the face in your first playthrough with a hail of bullets. Maybe, I don't know, have the prompt heads up come about a second earlier, so you have enough time to lower your angle power, because it popped me right in the face in my first playthrough. It's only subsequent playthroughs that I've realized that those were right there. Now here, this is a bit more tricky considering the massive quantity of bullets they're firing at you, but fortunately you can outpace the ones in the background quite easily, and then dodge and counter the other ones quite well. Now they've got these wall turrets. They return again, pretty much in more or less the same pattern they were earlier, only this time you've got to deal with two on opposite sides of the field. But fortunately you can trick them into firing and moving at the same time and having them fire in the wrong direction. You just got to be careful about the timing of these sorts of things. Because if you aren't, you'll get nailed in the face and you die in one hit, just like any good old shoot 'em up. Unfortunately, we're not to fight all those turrets, but fighting the two of these is annoying enough just because of the sheer quantity of bullets they shoot. The really hard attack, even though it might not look like that, is again those yellow waves. And then they fire a couple purple bullets to try to take you out while you're not looking. And then those high-powered cannon shots are nothing to sneeze at either. Those things really hurt. And because of that, fortunately, very small hitbox is able to get through there. Now it's time to fight two more Guardians, but fortunately, they can't actually destroy them because of shots hitting through the background. You can only counter them pretty easily, and they shoot plenty of bullets for you to quickly shoot at the boss. It's pretty simple. It's just like the first sub-boss is repeated in the first main boss. Being about boss battles, pretty much any single stage has a main boss and a sub-boss, except for a couple stages which are all boss. So, yeah, there's a lot of bosses in this game. It almost reminds me of a classic treasure game or something like that. Now, the first boss is pretty much down. Now this pattern repeats after this point. It starts sending the same waves of enemies after you, but by this point the boss is pretty close to being dead after all the bullets you pumped into it. Well, not so much pumped as reflected into it, but well. What I'm saying is pretty close to being dead. And boom, it's dead. Oh, a quick note about bossing, right, or boss fights right there. You see all those bullets that kept being shot at me? You're actually invincible after boss defeat. That comes up again in the end of the next stage, but it's not too much of a big deal right now. So ultimately, this game is a lot of fun and pretty simple. It's pretty simplistic. It's quite hard. I'm not nowhere near the best with shooters. I've had a couple practice with this game. Played through it a couple times. But ultimately, I'm pretty bad at this game. I haven't seen anyone else post this video on YouTube besides for Iron Commando, so I decided to make this real quick. And so in the shop, I really don't have enough money to buy too much useful stuff, so I just decide to, buy something simple like Smart Shot. Well, this has been Mario Ponner. Hope you enjoyed this video, and look forward to seeing you all again sometime. Thanks so much for watching. I appreciate it. I hope you really liked this video, and I appreciate you all watching.